Welcome back to the deep dive. Sometimes you look at a recipe and it's just a list, but today we're not just looking at a list.
No, not at all.
We are looking at a highly technical blueprint for what is basically an edible structure, classic Italian lasagna.
That is the perfect way to frame it. The source we're using feels less like a recipe and more like, I don't know, an engineering manual.
Right.
And so our mission here is to really understand the architectural requirements, the ratios, the exact temperatures, the timing, all the things that give you not just great flavor, but that perfect layering.
And that clean presentation, that's the goal, isn't it? The clean slide.
That's the holy grail of lasagna. So we're going to dig into this blueprint and pull out the actionable nuggets for you.
Okay, so let's start at the very foundation of this edible building. The ragu, the meat sauce. The source gets very specific about the protein right away.
It does, and it's deliberate. It really sets the tone. It calls for 1 pound of ground beef and specifically an 80-20 blend.
Why 80-20? Why not something leaner?
Because that 20% fat is absolutely vital. It's a flavor vehicle. As it renders down, it carries all those fat-soluble compounds through the sauce. It basically acts as an emulsifier during that long simmer.
So if you grab, say, a 937 blend, thinking you're being healthier.
You are, but you're sacrificing that richness.
Yeah.
You're sacrificing flavor depth and honestly, probably the final consistency the blueprint demands.
I see.
And to build on that, it recommends adding a ½ pound of Italian sausage. It says it's optional, but it's, strongly encouraged. The text says it adds great depth.
So we're really building a dense, super flavorful foundation.
Exactly.
Okay, so next come the aromatics. 1 medium onion, 3 cloves of garlic. But the fascinating part to me is the sequence here. It's a 2-step process.
And this is a critical structural step that I think a lot of people skip.
Okay.
You brown the beef and sausage first. The second they're cooked through, you have to drain off that excess fat.
Before the aromatics go in.
Before. If you don't, that oil will just leak out during the bake. It compromises the noodles, makes the whole bottom layer greasy. It's a structural failure, not just a flavor issue.
That makes so much sense. You're getting rid of anything that could destabilize the final cut.
Precisely. Once that's done, then we build the tomato base. A big 28-ounce can of crushed tomatoes and a 6-ounce can of tomato paste.
That feels like a lot of tomato paste. It must make for a really rich, concentrated sauce.
And that concentration is non-negotiable for what we're trying to do here. But the real lesson is the simmer time.
Right.
Once it's all in the pot, you have to simmer it on low for 30 to 45 minutes. That is how you guarantee a thick sauce that can actually function as a layer.
So what's actually happening in that 45 minutes?
Well, 2 things. First is flavor maturity. The acid from the tomatoes mellows out and the spices all meld together.
Okay.
But second, and more important for our structure, is reduction. You are boiling off water. That increases the solids in the sauce, which makes it way more viscous. A thick ragu won't leak out when you slice it.
So you're basically building structural steel, not soup.
You are building structural steel. And if the ragu is our steel, then the cheese filling has to be the high-performance mortar holding it all together.
I like that. Okay, section 2. Let's talk about that mortar, the core stabilizer layer.
We're talking 15 ounces of ricotta cheese, about a ½ cup of grated Parmesan for salt and texture, and some fresh parsley. Pretty standard stuff.
But the blueprint adds one more thing, a single large egg. Now, doesn't that risk making the filling, I don't know, kind of rubbery?
It's a great question, and it gets right to the heart of the source's whole philosophy, and the answer is no, not if it's balanced. The egg isn't there for flavor. It's a binder. It's a protein structure that's designed to cure when it's baked.
So it's like molecular glue.
Exactly. The source says it's there so the cheese doesn't run. When the lasagna gets hot, things start to get watery. The egg coagulates and sets, creating a creamy but firm, stable layer.
So it won't ooze when sliced?
That's the promise. That one egg is your structural insurance policy.
Okay, so we have our dense, reduced ragu steel and our firm, egg-bound ricotta mortar. Now we have to actually build the thing. Section 3, assembly.
Right, and we start with the environment. The oven is preheated to a very specific 375 degrees Fahrenheit, not 350, not 400.
We'll get to why that is later, I assume.
We will. And you're using a standard 9 by 13-inch dish and about 9 to 12 lasagna noodles, which need to be slightly undercooked.
But before the first noodle even goes down, the source says you have to put a thin layer of the meat sauce on the bottom of the dish. Why is that the very first step?
To prevent sticking. Full stop.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, the starch in those noodles would just fuse to the bottom of the dish otherwise. This little layer of sauce is a barrier. It's essential for getting a clean slice out.
Okay, anti-stick layer is down. Now for the main event. We're building 3 main layers.
And the order is absolutely key for preventing slippage. So you start with 3 or 4 noodles.
Okay.
Then you spread on 1/3 of that stable ricotta mixture, then 1/3 of the dense meat sauce, and then a handful of shredded mozzarella.
So it's noodle, ricotta, ragu, mozzarella. And you repeat that 3 times.
You do.
Yeah.
And that sequence forces the heavy, wet ingredients to be sandwiched by the noodles, which creates a lot of shearing resistance.
I mean, the layers won't slide off each other when you cut into it?
That's the idea. The firm ricotta grips the noodles from both sides.
And then we finish the tower with the top.
Right. The final layer is noodles, the last of the meat sauce, and then a, quote, generous layer of mozzarella and Parmesan. That's all about getting that beautiful, golden, bubbly crust.
And now we bake. But it's not just a simple set it and forget it bake, is it? It's 2 stages.
2 stages, 2 distinct functions. First, you cover it with foil and bake for 25 minutes. The foil traps steam, which makes sure everything gets heated through and gives those undercooked noodles the moisture they need to finish cooking.
Without drying out.
Right. Then you take the foil off for another 15 to 20 minutes. That second stage is purely for aesthetics. It's all about browning that cheese on top.
Okay, so beyond the basic steps, the source also gives these pro tips. The wisdom that really separates a good result from a perfect one.
This is the good stuff. The first tip is about that temperature we mentioned, the Goldilocks temperature of 375 degrees Fahrenheit.
Right. I mean, would it really be a disaster if I just baked it at 350?
It could be. I mean, that's the difference between just cooking and precision. If you go too low, the binders, the egg, the starches might not set properly, and you could get a watery result. Go too high, and you burn the cheese on top before the center is even hot. 375 is that perfect sweet spot.
I see. What's pro tip number 2?
The noodle hack. This is brilliant. If you're boiling your noodles, you cook them for 2 minutes less than the package says.
Why undercook them?
Because they're going to finish cooking in the oven, surrounded by all that sauce. Think of the noodle like a sponge. If it's already full of water, it can't absorb any of the sauce.
But if you leave it a little underdone,
It's still thirsty. It has the capacity to absorb moisture from the ragu, making the entire structure firmer and preventing that watery pool you sometimes get at the bottom.
that is such a clever piece of engineering. It feels like every single step is about controlling moisture.
It is. Draining the fat, reducing the sauce, binding the ricotta. It all leads to this one final non-negotiable step.
The one that requires the most willpower.
The crucial step of the rest. The instruction is absolute. You have to let the lasagna sit for 15 minutes before you cut into it.
15 minutes. That is an agonizing way. Why is it so critical?
It's the final curing time for the whole structure. When it comes out of the oven, everything inside is still boiling and shifting around. That rest allows the heat to redistribute, and more importantly, it allows the egg and the cheese to fully set.
So if you cut it too soon,
All that superheated liquid just rushes out, the layers collapse, and you get a steaming pile instead of that clean, beautiful slice you worked so hard for.
the rest is the final stage of structural cohesion. It all comes together there.
Absolutely. We started this by calling it a blueprint, and we've seen why. The 80-20 beef for flavor, the 45-minute simmer for viscosity, the egg as a binder, the sauce on the bottom. It's all about precision.
So the lesson here really seems to be the interdependence of all these steps. We've been focusing on that final 15-minute rest as the key to a perfect slice. But what if we go all the way back to the beginning? What if the cook rushed the ragu, simmered it for just 10 minutes so it was still a bit thin?
That raises a really important question for you as the builder. If that fundamental component, the ragu, is too watery, does it even matter how long you let it rest at the end?
Probably not. The liquid is going to pool no matter what. The structure was compromised from the very start.
Exactly.
So you could nail the rest time perfectly, but if the consistency of the sauce, that base structural element, was off, you're doomed anyway. The 15 minutes of patience at the end is useless if the 45 minutes of patience at the beginning wasn't respected.
It forces you to see that every single phase requires that same level of care to achieve that architectural perfection.
Something for you to mull over next time you're building your own edible structure.